diver from Fort Worth, Texas. Give it up for William Lays. You high and I hit that William.
So, I am an Ironman. I apologize for taking so long to make this video, but I was waiting for the event to send me like the video that they took of me during the event, which you'll see after this. But I got my finisher shirt on. I got my medal. But yeah, it was a pretty incredible experience. Where do I begin? I mean, what a day it was. I mean, it's been 10 days now. You know, starting from the beginning, the swim was very easy. I was surprised at how fast I did it. I thought I'd do it in like a minute or an hour 20, an hour 25-ish. I did it in an hour 14, 7th place in my age group. So they told us the first quarter of the swim would be upstream, and then you're going to turn around and do the last 3 quarters downstream. But the problem was that downstream was going south, and that's where the wind was coming from, and it was blowing pretty hard, 15 to 20 miles an hour. So it pretty much canceled out the downstream effect. I actually thought it was easier going upstream than downstream because of that wind, but you could definitely feel the current shift when you started going downstream. But even with all that, I did it in an hour 14. I probably could have done it faster if I didn't miss a buoy and I turned around. I mean, other people miss it too. It was hard to see because the sun was right in your face and my goggles were fogging up. And other people missed that buoy too and didn't turn around. But I just, to be honest, I turned around, so that probably cost me a minute. I probably could have done it about a minute faster. But yeah, I was feeling great coming out of the water with the fast swim. Went to the transition tent, put my bike stuff on, got my sunscreen on, got all, ready to go bike. And I get my bike from the transition area. I get on my bike and I start to go, and the chain wasn't on the ring, which was weird because I made sure it was on the ring when I racked it that morning. So I'm thinking someone tampered with my bike. And more evidence to that is the fact that mile 6 on the bike, the chain comes off the ring again when I shift gears to go up a small hill. And so I think it's no big deal. I'll just get off and put it back on. But I turn around and the chain is dragging on the ground. The chain broke. And you got to understand my mindset right here. I thought I was done. I thought I was going to get pulled off the course because I didn't know there was a such thing as mechanics that would, traverse around the course and fix people's bikes. They did tell you that if you got a flat, you were on your own. But I thought that was the case for any bike trouble. So here I am trying to fix this broken chain, having no luck. I'm freaking out. Other people are riding by me, asking what's going on. I tell them my chain broke. Like I said, I thought I was going to get pulled from the course. My day was over. I wasn't going to become an Ironman. And so finally a van pulls up and out pops a volunteer named Cam who fixes my chain, thank God. But turns out I was off the bike course for 23 minutes. And so before that happened, I had a set target power on my bike power meter that I wanted to stay in between so I didn't overcook myself on the bike, especially with how windy it was and how hot it was going to be. I wanted to make sure I didn't exert too much energy. But after that chain broke and I had lost 23 minutes, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling great. Like I felt great coming out of the water, tapered, carb loaded, all that. My legs are feeling very good those first 6 miles. So I was like, I need to catch up, make up for lost time. So I go well outside of my power range to catch up, and I'm passing a lot of people. But the thing is, it was very windy. On the first loop, it was very windy, but the thing is, my legs were fresh. I was carb loaded, tapered. I felt good. So the first loop, as windy as it was manageable. But the second loop, I started to probably run out of gas at mile 70 or so. And that wind was killer. I mean, it was gusting up to 30 miles an hour. There are times it felt like you're just going into a brick wall. On the second loop, it also got hotter. I mean, it got up to 99 degrees on my temperature gauge on my bike computer. It was bad, and the aid stations were few and far between every 14 miles, but there was one point I stopped at an aid station, got a couple bottles of water, but the thing is, they were bottles like this, so they got hot very quick, and they were very flimsy. They were Gatorade Endurance and just like regular water bottles, and they didn't stay in my bottle cages very well, and they popped out. And so I went like probably 28 miles without any water. So I made sure to stop at the next aid station and down like a half gallon of water before I got back on. And the thing is, since it was a 2-loop bike course, you knew what was coming the second time around. And the thing is, the last 16 miles of the course were straight into the wind. I mean, it was a loop, but there was only about 2 stretches on the entire 56-mile loop where you felt like the wind was at your back and helping you. Outside of those 2 short stretches that totaled maybe like 5 miles, you were either battling a headwind or a crosswind. Both were pretty bad. I mean, the crosswind felt like it was going to knock you over, and the headwind just felt like it was making you like a wall, like you weren't making any progress into it. And so on that second loop, you knew, those last 16 miles were coming. And so those last 16 miles were torture, from mile 96 to 112, straight into the wind. It was hot. I didn't see any other bikes, so I'm like, either I've dropped everybody or everyone's dropped me. But I passed a lot of people on the bike. Only a couple people passed me. And so I finally finished the bike in what seemed like eternity in 6 hours, 42 minutes. Without the chain break, I probably could have done it in 6:15 or so. Yeah, that was miserable. I was so ready to be off the bike. But the thing is, when you're struggling on the bike, like my power just dropped off that second loop. You're trying to eat a lot, consume a lot of carbs to kind of like give you some energy. And so I'm in the tent, transitioning to start running the marathon. Just everybody else in the tent just kind of had like the 1,000-yard stare on their face. Everyone looked very defeated. I was trying to be in good spirits, but no one really wanted any of it. There's only a couple people that were willing to banter with me. But so I start out on the run, and from the very get-go of the run, my stomach is just like so unsettled. Like it felt like someone was twisting my stomach and like wringing it out like a towel. It hurt so bad. But I tried to tough it up maybe the first 4 or 5 miles on the run and just, run through it. But the thing is, in order to keep my stomach from really bothering me, I was passing the aid stations and not drinking anything. But then I was starting to get dehydrated and starting to get dizzy and everything. And so I'm like, you know what? The thing is, during my training, I never walked on my runs ever. So I told myself I need to check my ego at the door. I need to just walk, settle my stomach down so I can get some fluids in me, There's no shame in walking. And so I started to do walk-run intervals just to get my stomach settled down. Also, it's still very hot and windy. You got to remember, you're still dealing with the heat, record-breaking heat, 95 degrees, tied a record high for Waco on October 15th. And the wind, too. You're running straight into that wind at points on the run course. And so, but walking really helped settle my stomach down so I could get some fluids in me. I could eat some bananas, stuff like that to make the run a little bit more manageable. When I started walking, though, I was like, I had my watch going. I turned off my watch. I turned it off because I was like, I don't want to try to kill myself out here trying to beat some arbitrary target time. I'm just going to listen to my body and go by that and not use my watch to pace myself. So I turned it off. And so I didn't know what my times were or splits were or anything on my laps. And so my strategy was to pretty much like walk up the inclines and take my time at the aid stations, which are spaced a mile apart. So I took it aid station by aid station. It was a 2-loop course, and I finished the first lap, the first 13 miles, and I start the second lap. And it was easier the second lap because the sun went down and the wind died with it, and it got cooler, not as much wind to deal with, and my stomach wasn't as unsettled. So I did a lot better on the second loop, and it got dark, and you kind of feel bad for people. I'm on my second loop on mile 20 or something like that, and you're just going by people that were still on their first loop. But, like I said, I just took it one aid station at a time. It felt like the run dragged on just as long as the bike. It felt like it would never end. But I would say my favorite moment of the entire race was when I came up to where the run course splits, and there's a sign and volunteers, and they're asking you, are you starting your second loop or are you going to the finish line? And when I told them I was going to the finish line, that was the best feeling ever. So in order to go to the finish line, you had to tell the volunteers so they open the gate for you, and then you can go into the finisher's chute. And you got to remember, I didn't know what my time was. I didn't know how long I'd been running for. I didn't know what my lap splits were. And so I'm figuring, I've done a lot of walking, probably not running my best. So I'm probably in the 14-hour range or so. And honestly, going into the race, my goal is probably 13 hours or less. And so when I get into the finisher chute, you can see the clock, and it was still at like 12 something. And my mind was blown. I was like, there's no way. Like, even with my chain breaking and dealing with the problems with the wind and the heat in my stomach and walking on the run, I'm still going to finish under 13 hours. No way. And so I got really excited because up until that point, I didn't know. So going down the finisher chute, I was just like beating my chest and screaming all that. And I crossed the finish line. My run took 4 hours and 25 minutes, which is pretty good, all things considered. And my overall finish time was 12 hours, 44 minutes, 14th place in my age group. If my chain didn't break, I would have got, assuming like just the 23 minutes, you could subtract it, I would have got 11th place in my age group. But awesome experience, man. It was really incredible. But just until you cross that finish line, I mean, I was just dealing with pure agony the whole run, and the bike too. Probably the last 40 miles of the bike and the whole run, dealing with pure agony. It hurt. Imagine the most tired you've ever been after a workout in your life and realizing you still have to run 26 miles. Like it can be very defeating. And for a lot of people, it did defeat them. 31% didn't even finish, which is an average Ironman. About 7% don't finish. This was a 31 did not finish rate. Because of the heat and wind, a lot of people just dropped out. A lot of people didn't even show up to the start line. They said 800 people signed up and only about 550 showed up to start, meaning about 250 people probably saw the weather forecast and said no way. But out of the 550 people that started, only 380 finished. So 31% just either got pulled from the course or just didn't want to continue. And so it was tough conditions, miserable. But going through that finisher chute made it all worth it in the end. It was like I said, it was like 12 hours and 30 minutes of agony and 30 seconds of glory is what it felt like. But it was worth it. It was a lot of fun. And I guess the lessons I learned is that I'm glad I didn't cut corners in my training. I'm glad I embraced the elements instead of run for them. I talked to a lot of people who really struggled that said, they didn't run in the heat. They ran early. They didn't bike out in the heat. They just biked indoors or just didn't do it. I embraced working out in the hot temperatures in the summer because I got advice saying train for the worst conditions. The advice I got was go to a weather almanac and look up what the record high is for Waco on October 15th and assume it's going to be 2 or 3 degrees hotter than that on race day. And that's pretty much what happened. The average temperature for October 15th in Waco is 78. The average high, 78. It was 95. And I'm glad throughout the summer I did my long runs and a lot of my long bikes and stuff out in that heat here in Texas and in Las Vegas and everywhere else. I feel like that made a huge difference. Another thing I guess I could talk about is, advice for someone who wants to do their first Ironman. I would say be prepared to spend a lot of money. Even though I didn't buy an expensive triathlon bike, I bought a $2,000 road bike, put some aero bars on it and a power meter, aero bottle, stuff like that. Even with all that, the bike still cost me over, $3,000 when all is said and done. And that doesn't count maintenance or new tires or the time my spoke broke, I had to get that fixed. All the costs kind of add up. Swimming and running, obviously a little bit less expensive. Really, the only thing for running you need to buy is shoes. Swimming, you need your goggles, your swim cap, earplugs, and then some accessories that helped for me was a pull buoy, paddles, and a kickboard. Also a wetsuit, you got to invest in that. The wetsuit helped a lot on the swim. It really did. My swim time at 1 hour, 14 minutes, that was faster than I ever swam in the pool. I remember when I swam the Ironman distance in the pool, 4,200 yards, my pace was not even that fast. So the wetsuit really helps. And swimming in the open water, you really need to practice that. I did it in easy conditions at places like Marine Creek and Lake Grapevine here in DFW, but I also did it at Lake Mead in Las Vegas. That was very, those conditions that day I did it in Lake Mead. If you watch my Las Vegas vlog videos, I'm going to come out with that Sunday, August 27th video here soon. You'll see my open water swim at Lake Mead. And that's honestly what broke my camera. Yeah, the cost ran up, and it's not cheap, but it's something you'll probably enjoy. You'll get a lot of benefit out of it. You'll become very fit. Your fitness will be incredible. It's a great way to be able to eat more food without gaining the weight. But you still got to be careful. You can't just stuff your face. That was one of the hardest parts of training for an Ironman was being hungry all the time. Even on days I would burn 6,000 calories and would eat, 6,500 calories, you'd be hungry all the time just because that's how it is. But if I just listened to my hunger and just stuffed my face, I would have easily gained weight. So you still got to be careful with that, but it is a way to eat a lot of food if you're into that. But like I said, it makes you become very fit and it makes you become very disciplined. It's not for everybody, though. It takes a lot of time. You have to plan your days and weeks around your training. And they're especially the midweek stuff. I like the weekend long stuff. I like the long bike on Saturday. I like the long run and swim on Sunday. But the midweek stuff, I mean, especially on Tuesdays and Fridays where I would swim and bike, those are my least favorite days. There are just some days I didn't want to be in the pool, didn't want to be out on the bike. It just felt like I was going through the motions. So if I was going to do it again, which, spoiler alert, I probably will sign up for another Ironman. This isn't going to be a one and done. But I would probably pick a plan that I swam 3 days instead of 4 during the week. Probably a little bit less volume, but on the days I do work out, probably a little bit more intensity. So yes, I'm going to do it again. I'm probably going to sign up for Ironman Texas in April. I'm going to buy a new triathlon specific bike, one that's expensive, but would help greatly with speed, cutting through the wind, that type of stuff. This is a hobby or a lifestyle I would like to invest in, so I'm going to get a pretty fancy bike here pretty soon. I'll probably start training for Ironman Texas in December or January. But as of right now, I pretty much took like 3 days off and then did some very light biking and swimming last week. I did my first run on Sunday, so 8 days after the Ironman, just a 2-miler. And now the next 7 weeks, I'm going to just run and lift. I'm not going to bike or swim because I'm training for the BMW Dallas Marathon on December 11th. But anyway, I got my equipment set up here in my new apartment so I can start doing videos again. And yeah, anyway, that was my Ironman Waco experience. Not my last. I'll definitely be doing another one. But like I said, probably a couple of months off until I get back into the full Ironman training, and I'll probably do it different this time. But yeah, highly recommend it. I highly recommend everyone do one in their life. It was an amazing experience. It made like I said, going down that finisher chute made the whole 6 months of training worth it. It really did. Anyway, enjoy. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. And thanks to my audience, those of you who emailed me saying that you're following me on race day. That really meant a lot to me. I mean, I don't know my audience. I don't know you guys, but the fact that you downloaded the Ironman app and tracked my progress on Saturday, that was awesome. Getting emails from you guys who said they followed along. So at least you guys know I finished. But yeah, 12 hours, 44 minutes for my first time Ironman. And one more thing I want to add. I could have easily done worse than that. I could have easily just walked the entire run, which a lot of people do. A lot of people do walk the entire run, but I have high standards for myself. I didn't bust my ass for 6 months just to finish the bare minimum, like finish in the 16-hour range. No offense to the people who finish in 16 hours. I mean, it's very hard. Just finishing is very impressive, trust me, especially with the heat and wind and the conditions we had to deal with. But no, I set out to have higher standards than that, which is why I still pushed myself on the run, especially when my stomach got better. Anyway, that will wrap up this video. Again, thanks for watching.
Texas. Give it up for William Lays. Chute.